Hello, fam. Welcome to The Real Place, a place where real women share real stories. Before we dive into the story, please kindly subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share your thoughts below. The drip started at 2:17 a.m. I know because I was lying there counting ceiling cracks again, that familiar ritual of insomnia that had become my most reliable companion.
Drip. Pause. Drip.
Like a metronome marking time in my perfectly controlled life. My apartment reflects everything I've built since the divorce. Clean lines, neutral colors, not a single thing out of place. Every surface tells the story of a woman who has her life together. The motivational books are arranged by color. The fresh flowers I buy myself every Friday. The framed photos of solo adventures to prove I don't need anyone else to make memories. But at 2 a.m., surrounded by all this evidence of my independence, the silence feels suffocating. The drip from my kitchen sink becomes an accusation. Even my perfectly maintained life is falling apart, drop by drop. I pad to the kitchen in my silk pajamas, the ones I bought to feel luxurious for an audience of one. Under the sink, a small puddle has formed, dark and spreading like the loneliness I refuse to acknowledge during daylight hours. I grab a towel, knowing it's a temporary fix, knowing that tomorrow I'll have to do the one thing I've trained myself never to do: ask for help. The irony isn't lost on me. At work, I'm the one everyone comes to. Elena, who stays late to help struggling colleagues. Elena, who remembers birthdays and organizes baby showers. Elena, who gives relationship advice while her own heart remains locked away like a museum piece, perfectly preserved but never touched. I've become an expert at nurturing everyone except myself. 3 years since Michael left me for his 25-year-old assistant. 3 years of proving I don't need anyone, and what do I have to show for it? A leaking sink and the kind of bone-deep loneliness that makes you count ceiling cracks at 2 a.m. The water keeps dripping, and I keep standing there in my expensive pajamas, wondering when self-sufficiency started feeling like a prison sentence. Sunday morning arrives gray and mocking. I've been staring at Kyle's door for 10 minutes, rehearsing casual ways to ask for help without sounding desperate. He's been my neighbor for 8 months, quiet, polite, the kind of man who nods hello and minds his own business. Perfect for someone like me who's built her life around avoiding complications. My hand hovers near his door. This goes against everything I've taught myself about independence. But the puddle under my sink has grown overnight, and even my stubbornness has limits. The door opens before I knock.
Elena.
Kyle emerges in rumpled clothes, hair still sleep mussed, and there's something about the way he says my name, surprised but pleased, that catches me off guard. Everything okay? He's taller than I remembered, with those deep-set eyes that seem to actually see you rather than just look at you. There's paint under his fingernails and sawdust on his shirt, evidence of a life lived with his hands, creating things instead of just maintaining them. My sink, I manage, hating how small my voice sounds. It's leaking, and I thought maybe... I trail off, my carefully rehearsed speech evaporating under his patient attention. Of course. He doesn't hesitate, doesn't make me finish the humiliating admission that I can't handle this alone. Let me grab my tools. As he disappears back into his apartment, I catch a glimpse of his space. Warm colors, lived-in furniture, books scattered on surfaces. It looks like a home, not a showpiece. The contrast to my sterile perfection makes something twist in my chest. When he returns with a worn toolbox, his presence fills my hallway in a way that should feel invasive, but doesn't. Instead, it feels like the first warm thing to enter my carefully climate-controlled world in months. Lead the way, he says, and his smile is easy, genuine, the kind that makes you remember what it feels like to be seen as more than just the sum of your problems. Walking him into my apartment, I'm suddenly hyper-aware of every surface, every carefully chosen detail that screams, woman who doesn't need anyone. But Kyle doesn't seem intimidated by my fortress. If anything, he moves through it with a gentle confidence that makes the space feel less like a museum and more like a place where people might actually live. Nice place, he says, and there's no judgment in it, just observation. Very you. I wonder what he means by that, and realize I'm not sure I know myself anymore. Mind if I take a look? Kyle asks, already kneeling by my sink with the kind of easy competence that makes something flutter in my chest. I hover nearby, suddenly uncertain of my place in my own kitchen. When was the last time a man moved through this space with such natural authority? Michael used to call the kitchen my domain, as if cooking and cleaning were hobbies I'd chosen rather than responsibilities that had somehow become mine alone. Kyle opens the cabinet doors and peers underneath. Looks like the connection loosened up. Pretty common in older buildings. His voice is muffled, professional, but there's something comforting about having someone diagnose my problems with such certainty. Can you fix it? I ask, leaning closer without meaning to. Should be simple enough. He glances up at me from his position on the floor, and our eyes meet in the cramped space. Something passes between us. Not quite a spark, but a recognition. Like looking into still water and seeing your reflection clearly for the first time in years. I'll need to get under here, he says. Might be tight with both of us. I should move. Give him space. Instead, I find myself sitting on the floor beside him, drawn by curiosity I can't name. When was the last time I watched someone work with their hands? When was the last time I let myself be this close to another person's competence? The space under my sink becomes intimate, our shoulders brushing as he reaches for his wrench. The accidental contact sends warmth through me that has nothing to do with the morning coffee I'm clutching. So, what do? He asks, adjusting something I can't see. The sides live in the most organized apartment I've ever seen. I laugh, surprised by the sound. Marketing director. I organize campaigns instead of closets.
Ah.
That explains the color-coordinated bookshelves. There's gentle teasing in his voice, but no mockery. It's been so long since someone noticed the details of my life without judgment that I'm not sure how to respond. What about you? I ask, watching his hands work with practiced efficiency. Furniture maker. Custom pieces, mostly. He pauses in his work, glances at me sideways. I like creating things that last. The way he says it, the weight behind those simple words, makes me wonder what else he builds besides furniture. What else he believes in making permanent in a world that seems increasingly disposable. His hand brushes my leg as he reaches for another tool, and the contact is electric, unexpected. We both freeze for a moment, awareness crackling between us in the small space. Neither of us moves away. Sorry, he murmurs, but he doesn't sound sorry. He sounds aware, present, like a man who notices when something shifts in the air around him. It's fine, I whisper, but nothing about this feels fine. It feels dangerous and necessary, and like the first real moment I've had in years. There. Kyle tightens something with a final twist, and the persistent dripping stops. The silence that follows feels profound, like the moment after a long-held breath is finally released. He sits back on his heels, wiping his hands on a rag, and I realize I've been holding my coffee cup like a shield. The repair took maybe 20 minutes, but something fundamental has shifted in my carefully ordered world. That should hold, he says, but neither of us moves to get up from the cramped space under my sink. We're sitting closer than necessary now, close enough that I can smell the faint scent of sawdust and soap on his skin, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "Thank you," I say, and the words carry more weight than they should. When was the last time someone fixed something for me without making it feel like a favor I'd owe forever? Happy to help. He's looking at me with an expression I can't quite read. Curious, maybe, or surprised. "Your husband travel a lot?" The question hangs between us, and I realize he's noticed the absence as much as the presence. No masculine touches in my perfectly curated space. No second coffee cup. No signs of a life shared. Divorced, I say, the word still feeling foreign after 3 years. 3 years now. He nods, doesn't offer the usual platitudes about better off without him or everything happening for a reason. Instead, he just accepts the information like it's another fact about me worth knowing. "Kids?" He asks gently. "We tried." The admission slips out before I can stop it, and I'm shocked by my own honesty. I never talk about the miscarriages, the years of hoping, the way Michael's disappointment slowly turned into something that felt like blame. It wasn't meant to be. Kyle's expression softens, and for a moment, I think he might reach for me. Instead, he just nods again, and somehow his restraint feels more intimate than comfort would have. "I'm sorry," he says simply, and the words settle between us like stones in still water. We sit there in the aftermath of unexpected honesty, and I realize something has cracked open in me. Not broken, cracked, like an egg ready to hatch. For 3 years, I've been so focused on proving I don't need anyone that I forgot what it feels like to be truly seen by someone who matters. "I should let you get back to your Sunday," I say, but I don't move. Neither does he. "Elena," he says, and my name sounds different in his voice. Less like a label and more like a discovery. "Would you like to have coffee sometime? Real coffee, not the fixing your sink kind." The question should terrify me. Instead, it feels like the first honest thing anyone has asked me in years. Like he's not asking me to dinner or to fill a space in his life, but to step into mine. To let him see more than just the perfectly organized woman who lives next door. "I'd like that," I hear myself say, and realize I mean it completely. Tuesday evening, Kyle knocks on my door with 2 cups of coffee from the place downstairs and a smile that makes my carefully constructed evening routine feel suddenly irrelevant. "Thought I'd bring the coffee to you," he says when I open the door, still in my work clothes, still carrying the armor of my professional competence. "If that's okay." It's more than okay. It's thoughtful in a way that catches me off guard. This simple acknowledgement that my space might be somewhere worth lingering. I invite him in, and he settles onto my pristine white couch like he belongs there. The contrast is striking, his worn jeans and paint-stained hands against my carefully curated perfection. Instead of feeling invasive, his presence makes the room feel less like a showpiece and more like a place where life might actually happen. "Tell me about your work," I say, curling up in the chair across from him, noting how the coffee tastes better when someone else thought to bring it. "I make things," he says simply. "Tables, chairs, sometimes bigger pieces. I like working with my hands, creating something that wasn't there before." There's pride in his voice, the quiet satisfaction of someone who builds rather than just maintains. I think about my own work, campaigns and strategies, things that exist on screens and disappear after their purpose is served. "What's the last thing you made?" I ask, genuinely curious. His face lights up. "A rocking chair for my sister. She just had her first baby." He pulls out his phone, shows me a photo of a beautiful piece, all curved lines and careful joinery. Took me 3 months, but it'll last generations. Something about the way he says generations makes my chest tight. Michael used to talk about the future in quarters and fiscal years, everything measured in immediate returns. Kyle speaks about time like it's something worth investing in, like permanence is possible. It's beautiful, I say and mean it. What about you? What do you create? The question stops me cold. Create? I manage campaigns, I solve problems, I keep things running smoothly. But create? I don't know if I create anything. I admit, the honesty surprising us both. I maintain things. I optimize them. I make sure they work properly. Like your life? He asks gently, and the observation isn't cruel, just accurate. Like my life. I agree, looking around my perfect apartment with new eyes. When did maintaining become my primary function? When did I stop building and start just preserving? We talk until the coffee grows cold, and somehow the conversation shifts from work to dreams, from surface details to the complicated truths underneath. I tell him about the novel I used to write in margins of legal pads, about the painting classes I took before Michael convinced me they were impractical. He tells me about the workshop he wants to build, about teaching kids to work with wood, about believing in making beautiful things in a world that seems increasingly disposable. Why did you stop? He asks about the writing, and I realize no one has asked me that question in years. No one has cared about the things I gave up. Life got complicated, I say, but even as the words leave my mouth, they feel insufficient. Life didn't get complicated. I made it safe. I chose maintenance over creation, security over risk. It's not too late, Kyle says simply, and something about the way he says it makes me believe him. When he leaves, my apartment feels different. Not empty, expectant. Like something is about to begin. The week that follows feels like living in someone else's life. Colors seem brighter, food tastes more complex. Even my work emails carry less weight. I catch myself smiling at nothing, humming in elevators, noticing things I've walked past for months without seeing. At work, my colleague Sarah notices the change immediately. "You look different," she says over lunch, studying my face like she's trying to solve a puzzle. "Happier. Did you start dating someone?" The question makes me pause. Am I dating Kyle? We've had coffee twice more, once at the cafe downstairs, and once while he helped me hang new curtains I didn't really need hanging. Both times felt less like dates and more like glimpses into a different way of being. Conversations that meandered instead of marched, silences that felt comfortable instead of empty. "I'm spending time with someone," I say carefully, and Sarah raises an eyebrow. "Spending time? Elena, honey, you sound like you're 12. She's not wrong. I feel adolescent, uncertain, like I'm rediscovering parts of myself I thought were permanently buried under 3 years of militant independence. Last night, Kyle brought over a piece of wood he was sanding, just to keep his hands busy while we talked, and I found myself mesmerized by the rhythm of his movements, the way he could create smoothness from roughness with nothing but patience and pressure. It's complicated, I tell Sarah, which is both true and completely inadequate. "The best things usually are," she says, then leans forward with the expression of someone about to give advice whether you want it or not. "Just don't overthink it to death. You have a tendency to analyze things until they stop breathing." Her words follow me home, where I stand in my kitchen staring at the perfectly repaired sink and wondering if I'm doing exactly what she warned against. Am I analyzing this connection with Kyle until it becomes another thing to manage rather than something to experience? That evening, he texts me, "Working late tonight, but saw this and thought of you." The attached photo shows a sunset through his workshop window, golden light streaming across scattered wood shavings and half-finished projects. It's beautiful and chaotic and alive in a way my space never is. I stare at the photo for a long time, trying to remember the last time someone saw something beautiful and thought of me. Not because they needed something from me or wanted me to fix something, but simply because beauty reminded them of my existence. The realization hits me like cold water. I've been so focused on not needing anyone that I forgot what it feels like to be wanted. Not needed, wanted. Chosen. Thought of when I'm not even there. I text back, "It's beautiful. Thank you for thinking of me." His response comes quickly, "I think of you more than I probably should." I stare at those words until my screen dims, heart hammering against my ribs. This is dangerous territory, this admission of mutual preoccupation. This is where careful people like me usually retreat, where I start building walls instead of bridges. Instead, I type, "Me too," and press send before I can talk myself out of honesty. Saturday morning, Kyle knocks on my door with coffee and a proposition that changes everything. "I want to show you something," he says, and there's nervous energy in his voice I haven't heard before. "If you're free." I'm always free on Saturdays. My weekends are carefully planned exercises in productive solitude, grocery shopping, apartment cleaning, meal prep for the week ahead. But looking at Kyle's face, bright with anticipation and something deeper, I find myself saying yes before I know what I'm agreeing to. He leads me to his workshop, a converted garage space I never knew existed behind our building. The moment I step inside, I understand something fundamental about him that I couldn't grasp from his apartment or our careful conversations. This is where he lives, really lives. Surrounded by the smell of sawdust and oil, tools hanging in careful arrangement, projects in various stages of completion telling the story of his hands and heart. This is incredible. I breathe, running my fingers along a half-finished table, feeling the grain of wood that's been loved into smoothness. "I wanted you to see where I spend most of my time," he says, watching my reaction carefully. "Where I'm most myself." The vulnerability in that admission stops me cold. When was the last time someone cared enough about my opinion to show me their most authentic space? When was the last time I had a space that felt this honest? He shows me the rocking chair he's building for another sister, explains the joinery technique he's perfecting, lets me hold tools that are worn smooth from use. His passion is infectious, the way he talks about grain patterns and joint strength with the same intensity other people reserve for love affairs. Why furniture? I ask, genuinely curious. Why not sculpture or art? Because people live with furniture, he says simply. They eat meals on tables I make, rock their babies in chairs I build. I like creating things that become part of people's daily happiness. The answer reveals something beautiful about his worldview. This belief that ordinary objects can hold extraordinary meaning, that craftsmanship is a form of love extended to strangers. I used to write, I find myself saying, surprising us both. Stories, mostly. I haven't in years. What kind of stories? About people finding each other.
About
Connections that change everything. I laugh, but it sounds hollow. Ironic, considering how determined I've been to avoid exactly that. Kyle sets down the chisel he's been holding and looks at me directly. What are you avoiding, Elena? The question hangs between us, honest and unavoidable. In his workshop, surrounded by evidence of creation and care, my usual deflections feel suddenly impossible. Getting hurt again, I admit. Needing someone who might leave. Wanting something I can't control. And now, I look around his workshop at the evidence of his devotion to craft and permanence, then back at his face, patient, interested, present in a way that makes me feel like the most important thing in his world right now. Now I'm wondering if the things I've been avoiding might be exactly what I need. He steps closer, close enough that I can see the sawdust caught in his hair, smell the familiar scent of wood and soap that's becoming precious to me. When he reaches for my hand, his fingers are rough from work, but gentle in their certainty. Elena, he says, and my name in his voice sounds like a question and an answer all at once. I don't want to be something you're managing or maintaining. I want to be something you're building. The words hit me like revelation. All my life, I've approached relationships like problems to solve, people to please, situations to control. But Kyle is asking me to approach this like creation, messy, uncertain, requiring faith in the process rather than control of the outcome. I don't know how to build, I whisper. I only know how to maintain. Then let me teach you, he says, squeezing my hand. Let me show you how to create something that lasts. Standing in his workshop, surrounded by evidence of patience and skill and devotion to craft, I understand finally what I've been missing. Not someone to complete me, I'm already complete, but someone to create with. Someone to build something beautiful alongside, something neither of us could make alone. For the first time in 3 years, I'm not thinking about protection or independence or proving I don't need anyone. I'm thinking about possibility. About what we might build together if I'm brave enough to pick up the tools. Okay, I say, and the word feels like stepping off a cliff and growing wings simultaneously. Teach me. His smile could power cities. We'll start with something simple, he says. Something beautiful. Something that will last. As he guides my hands to the smooth wood, showing me how to feel for the grain, how to work with the material instead of against it, I realize he's not just teaching me woodworking. He's teaching me how to love again, patiently, skillfully, with faith in the process and commitment to the outcome. For the first time in years, I'm not just maintaining my life. I'm building it. And I'm not building it alone. What would you have done in her situation? Have you ever felt drawn towards something unexpected? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, there are more like it waiting. Subscribe and hit the bell to never miss these thoughtful stories about the complexity of being a woman in today's world. Because sometimes the stories we're hesitant to share are the ones that matter most.